am pleased to have with me on the other end of this Skype interview, Pedro Ortiz. Pedro is a senior consultant advisor to the World Bank on topics of urban, metropolitan, and global development. And he's currently working on proposals in 12 countries in Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. And of course, we want to talk about development. We had an interview here about a week or so ago with Michael Van Housen, who's got the opportunity to build a city from scratch in China. What I want to talk about is, what do we do with today's cities? What do we do with the large, sprawling metropolises that we already have around the planet? From small cities the size of Omaha with 500,000 people to sprawling megalopolises like Mexico City with 20 million. How do we make those efficient? How do we make life enjoyable and equitable and accessible for people in those countries, particularly from the perspective of transportation? So Pedro, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Hello, thank you. It's an honor to be interviewed by you and for your website.
Well, thank you. Let's start off, first of all, by having you tell us a little bit about what the World Bank's involvement is with development, city development.
Well, the World Bank was created in 1947 with the purpose of helping the countries in trouble to develop, no? And it has been doing that for 50 years. The issue is that development is, let me put it this way, is like a stool of three legs.
Okay.
One leg is the economy, the other leg is the sociology, the social structure, the social capital. The third leg is the environment, the space, the physical. Right. Not only the natural environment, as well the urban environment, the physical. And these three legs, to work, for the stool to work, have to be in equilibrium.
Right.
And what makes the equilibrium of the three legs is the place where you sit. And that is the governance. That is the government and the dialogue of, with government with civil society. And you have to equilibrate these three legs to make development lasting, sustainable, not too bound to the economy, because then the social, the equity is lost, Yes. The economy is looking for efficiency, the social issues are looking for equity, and the environmental issues are looking for sustainability,
Yes.
And to achieve these three objectives by having a governance system of government that looks for equilibrium, So the World Bank has, during 50 years, mainly focusing on economic and social development, and forgetting about one of the legs of the stool, which is very important, which is the physical.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have taken into account environmental capital and then physical environmental, but not as much the physical of the urban situation, the urban physical environment. And so it is essential to achieve equilibrium. What is happening now, and I come back to one of your questions, is that we are in a situation that we never before humankind confronted, which is the explosion of our urban situation.
Yeah.
We in Europe, we did that last century. With industrialization, our cities attracted a lot of rural migration to feed the need of labor of the industries, and the cities in Europe in the early 19th century grew a lot. And they were not able to absorb in quality conditions all this population that were coming from rural to urban due to the Industrial Revolution. And in Europe, in the beginning, in the first half of the 19th century, we had a lot of revolutions.
Yeah.
Due to the lack of quality. There is a lot of descriptions, Dickens, Balzac, all the literature,
right,
shows that situation. And in the middle of the 19th century, Europe decided that they had to confront the problem. And then there were theories, ways of dealing with the cities. They introduced the reticula. New York did that in 1811 before Europe, but Europe introduced that in 1850, 1860. And the second half of the 19th century, Europe was able to respond to that growth of cities. Now the problem is multiplied. It's not anymore a growth of cities, it's growth of metropolis. And many metropolis around the world are growing at a rate of 5% every year. And 5% every year, well, you say, well, what does that mean? Well, 5% every year means 100% every 14 years.
Yeah.
So imagine you have to build New York in 14 years, or Washington in 14 years, or Los Angeles, no? So that is the problem the governments in many developing countries have to address, and they are not able to address it. They are not able to produce everyday New York, no? New York every 14 years means 10 blocks of New York every day.
Yeah.
No? So these governments are not able to produce the service land to respond to that need. So the result is a world of slums. Yeah. We are growing because people are coming. People are at a rate of every day 250,000 people are coming from rural to urban. No?
Yeah, I remember seeing a statistic where it said something like, 80% of the large metropolises that we see around the world, 80% of those are slums.
Are being built as slums.
Yeah.
Because as the governments are not able to respond to the needs of that immense amount of people, 250,000 every day, so people are coming anyway. For many years, for 15 years, the attitude of governments and multilaterals and the United Nations and the World Bank and so on was, let's not have these people in the cities. Let's keep them in the rural areas, no? So let's not provide service land for them. That way they will not come. They come anyway.
They come anyway, yeah.
They come anyway because the city is not because you have a nice house or not. It's because you have hope.
Right.
Cities for these people is hope. Hope of having a work, hoping of having education for the children, hoping of having facilities. Sometimes, because there is a lot of risk, insecurity in their rural areas, there is guerrilla, there is mafias that take the land out of them and so on. So the city is hope. And even if they are going to live in slums in the city, they go to the city to live in the city.
In some cases, it's as good or better than what they left back home, even though we would consider it a slum.
Because if it was not better, they will not come.
Right.
No?
Yeah.
So maybe the slum in the city is made out of cardboard, and in their village in the mountains is made of adobe and straw. But for them it's better because if not, they would have stayed in the mountains and so on.
Yeah.
So that problem, instead of denying that it exists, that has been the attitude for 20 years, we have to accept that we have to address it and to respond to it. No? And these governments do not have neither the capacity or the money, because you have to finance all those infrastructures to respond. So what is happening is that we are building a world of slums.
Yeah.
And they are just, and you see that even in Google Earth, no? When you see a series of time, you see how the city is growing in a kind of metastasis, like a cancer.
Yeah.
Because the structure of the cells of the city, the structures which have a way of organizing, you see how they grow in a disorganized way, like cancer cells. And this phenomena is absolutely new for us. It's the first time humankind has to confront the size of the phenomena and the difficulty. And we have 20, 30 years to solve it. If we are not able to respond to that, it will be much more expensive and probably impossible in the long term. To upgrade a slum costs 3 times more than to do it right from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
So we don't have time to, if we don't have money to do it right from the beginning, we will never have money
never have it solved,
to upgrade the slums afterwards.
Well, let me talk about, one of the things that I read about is you have this concept, sort of the chessboard concept. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to understand where you've got obviously a chessboard with red and black or red and gray or however the chess is laid out. And when I was reading the description on this is that a piece of that is the transportation part of that in the puzzle. So could you sort of help me kind of understand? I know you were instrumental in helping Madrid develop their long growth, sustainability plan. Help me sort of understand how that might apply to a city sprawling like Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro or Dar es Salaam. Some of these. How do you apply that so that people have that sense of equity and that sense of opportunity, despite these huge costs that might be involved?
Well, when villages or towns or cities have grown in a slow pace in human history, the process was a trial and error process, no? And that produced, in many cases, a kind of adapting progressively to the topography, and was what the English call disjointed incrementalism. No, you add something, it doesn't work, you take it out, you put it again, it works, you go on and so on. No, that's good when you have 5 centuries in front of you. No,
yeah.
But when you have to react quickly, in human history, we have always used the grid to allow for that kind of colonization of land. No, in previous times, it was empires colonizing other countries or other territories, like the Romans, no, or like the Greeks. The Grand Greece in Asia Minor, or in the West Mediterranean, the Grand Greece, Hippodamus de Mileto, used the grid to organize their cities.
Right.
The Romans did as well in all Europe. When they invaded Europe, the origin of many European towns is the Roman camp with the grid.
Yeah.
When the Anglo-Saxons built in North America, they did with a grid, and when the Spaniards built in Latin America, they did as well with a grid. When you have to take a decision which is quick and has to allow people to be able to take decisions of their own, democratic decisions within that structure, you use a grid. Because a grid allows for you to locate where you want, and you have a very basic system of building what you want to build. So the grid is a process that allows you to expand in a quick way and is flexible, and you can adapt to the things inside the grid. New York is an example. When they have to decide the grid of New York, they discuss if they wanted the star-shaped structure of Washington, D.C., which came from the Baroque style of L'Enfant and the Italian Baroque of the 16th century, or they wanted a more simple and easy to deal with, more effective way. And they decided for the grid, and that was the decision of New York. But the grid in history has grown with time, and it's related to the technology of transport.
Okay.
The unit of space in planning is not the meter, is the minute.
Okay.
Unit of space is time, is not space. Because the Greeks walked, so the grid in a Greek village, city, was 30 meters wide. 30 yards wide, no?
Okay.
In a Roman city, it was 60 meters wide. In a Spanish city in Latin America, it was 100 meters wide, no? And it grows because the technology goes from walking to using horses, to using chariots, and now the grid with the automobile has expanded to 3 miles, no? Okay. And you take the same time going 3 miles in a car that you used to take going in a horse in a city. So that system of grids is growing in size with the technology of transport. And so what we have to do now, confronted with this new dimension of growth of the metropolis, the new technology of transport that is only 60 years old, and for many The country is not even 60 years old because in Europe, the ownership of the private car in the second half of the 20th century created an explosion of our metropolis into a kind of oil splash. No,
Right, yeah.
everyone was able to use his car to go and come, but previous it was concentrated because many countries now only have one car, a ratio of car ownership of 0.1 per person. That means one car every 10 people. But the developed countries like America or like Europe, we have 7 cars every 10 people.